All right. Welcome to another episode, Endless Pursuit. Mackenzie, how are you today?
I'm doing good. How about you?
Doing well. I'm excited about today's episode. It's a little bit different. We're going to do like a Q&A. And I know you're going to kind of explain a little bit more what we mean by that and how we went about this. But I was thinking about Q&A. I'm going to do the first one real quick. Mike from school mentioned one time, he said, I have a question. Why is Laurence recording the podcast from a closet? And I had to think about it for a second. And I was looking at, I guess it's an armoire or something like that behind me. And it does. It kind of looks like closet doors. And so I was like, yeah, that's a pretty good observation there. It does kind of look like closet doors. I have an office in my house, but it doesn't have a door to it. It's kind of like, open entry type of thing. And I initially did that. First couple episodes, I did that there. But I have two dogs, and one of them is like the most awesome dog ever. His name's Dax, and they're both mutts, but he is he's like a 60-pound Saint Bernard slash whatever type of mutt, and he is like the most chill, relaxed dog ever. He doesn't bark. He doesn't like beg for treats. He doesn't tear things up. He is just the most chill thing ever. The best dog I've ever had. If I could clone him, I would totally clone him like a million times. But we decided to get another dog, I guess a couple of years ago. And we got it as a puppy. And she was a Great Pyrenees and Pit Bull mix. And so, kind of like in my mind, I was thinking, okay, we'll get another big dog. It'll be like more Great Pyrenees because her mom was more Great Pyrenees. And she's not very much Great Pyrenees. She's very much Pit Bull, like super high energy. She's a little bit smaller. She's very cute, very sweet, but she is chaos most of the time and super unpredictable. I mean, she'll go out in the yard and just like rip off like half of my bushes and walk around. Like yesterday, she had this like tree trunk. I don't even know where she got it from. And she runs around. And she'll play chase by herself. She'll throw the ball, go run around. And she's nuts. So like my fear is that she'll just bust in on the podcast one day and just start barking or jumping up all over me or something like that. So I'm like, you know what? I should probably do another room. So it just happens that I don't know. I just thought this was a better background than some wall or something like that. So, long story short, as to why it kind of looks like I'm recording in a closet.
That's
But
fair.
yeah,
We
so
don't have the official podcast set up yet. We'll upgrade to that eventually.
yes, yes. One day we'll have it all set up and it'll look pretty sweet. But right now, you get the old armoire thing in the background.
Does
So
the trick.
yeah. So Mackenzie, tell us about yourself. What's going on with you?
Um, kind of been, I guess, eventful for me. For one, I now have a day off every week, which I'm very excited about.
Yeah.
For the last probably 4 years since I started this business, I was working every single day doing check-ins on the weekend and everything. And so I finally got to a point, especially since my goal now is filling my cup and making sure I'm doing what I need to do to reduce stress and just find more balance. So I was able to move most of my stuff to Saturday so that way I can have Sunday fully off. And I have been so fired up and it's been so nice. Just, it's not that I was doing a ton of work on Sunday, but it's just the mental fatigue of knowing that I have stuff piling up. It's just good to wake up and not have anything and just have time to chill and think to myself. And so I've also been able to get out and kind of fill up my weekends quite a bit. Last weekend, I was pretty much gone almost like both Saturday and Sunday, just out hanging with friends, getting brunch. I went and saw some manatees, just going out to dinner with people. So just lots and lots going on. And it's been really good and really fulfilling and just such a good mental break. Just having that one day of no pending tasks, no work to do. So I've been fired up about that.
Yeah, I think it's like you said, mental break. It is like a stress, or I guess such a stress relief when you wake up and you're like, I don't have anything that I have to do. And then you can just kind of treat your day however you want, whether it's just laying around or going out and doing a bunch of things. But it's all like, I guess it's all under your control and it's everything that you kind of want to do type of thing.
Yeah, makes a really big difference, especially just not having that for years and years. So I'm very much enjoying it. And then I'm also heading out to Arizona tomorrow as of this recording. I'm flying out tomorrow morning. So I'm not particularly excited about that one, but luckily it'll be a fairly quick trip, just a couple days for the weekend and then flying back.
Yeah, now what's the weather like in Arizona? It's gonna be like nice year round, right?
It's not as nice as here in Florida, but it's still fairly warm. I think it's going to be around like high 60s, low of like 50s or 40s at night or something. So not terrible, but it's definitely not Florida.
Well, either one sounds amazing. It was like high 40 today, and it like snowed, but didn't really stick, and so
Oh,
it was a little chaos. But yeah, I prefer those warm temperatures for sure.
yeah, definitely. And I think people always ask me, "Do you ever miss Arizona or do you ever want to go back?" I'm like, "Hell no. I don't." Like once I moved here, I never looked back. I think it's easy for me too because I don't really have ties in Arizona, and so me moving to Florida was truly just kind of a restart, a completely fresh start, like just building an entire new life here. And so I really haven't looked back. I haven't thought about it. I don't want to go back. And even the one time that I did since I moved here, I don't know, just there's this energy. As soon as I land, I'm just like, oh, I don't like it here. I want to get back home.
Yeah,
And there's nothing against Arizona. Don't get me wrong. Arizona is like a great state overall. I think it's just because I had lived there my whole life and I was so needing a change and just needing something different, so comfortable. And now, especially since I'm so happy in Florida, it just that energy is still there. So
yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of the opposite. So I love Tennessee. It's a great place, but when I fly to Houston, I'm like, yes, I'm back in Texas. It's kind of like the opposite. Like there's something that's that energy. I walk in there like, oh man, like this is my place, this is my home, kind of thing. So that's funny.
how often do you go back there?
So it depends. Being a big Astros fan, I was blessed enough to be able to go to the World Series every time they go. So there's 4 years out of there that I'd go, and then I've saw my family a couple years ago, but I try to go every few years. There's a lot going on with my brother and sister and their family and my family, and so I love it. I mean, every time I get there, like I said, it's like home. So I can't wait to go back. But yeah, it's usually some time before I get back there.
And your siblings are there in Texas or where are they at?
Yeah, so they're both in the Houston area.
Okay.
Houston is so large, so like so my parents and then my brother's family and my sister's family, they're all in the Houston area, but they're probably like 45 minutes to an hour away from
Oh,
each
wow.
other. So it's like, yeah, it's far enough. And it was always, when I was a kid, it was kind of one of those things like Houston is so spread out that you would take, anywhere you went, it would take like 30, 45 minutes. It's just one of those things. You just knew you'd hop on, it was going to take you a while, but so.
And how long have you guys been in Tennessee? When did you move from Texas?
I went to school at the University of Tennessee, and then I just stayed here after that. So since I guess 2001, somewhere like that, I guess I officially lived here without going to school here.
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha.
it's been a while.
Cool. Well, shall we dive right into the Q&A today?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
So yeah, we're doing a slightly different format this week. Wanted to test out the Q&A format and take some time to dive deep into your guys' specific questions and kind of break out the situations and give our specific feedback kind of on the spot for those. And so in the future, if we like this kind of format, I'm going to be posting these questions in our private school community and on Twitter for you guys to drop your questions there. And that's where we are pulling everything from for the show for any future episodes. So that being said, we can dive right in. Mike in our community asked, what currently are your biggest challenges in your own personal fitness and training plan, and how are you working to overcome them? I really like this one.
Yeah, that's great. Great. You want to go first?
Yeah, so there's like a few main things that come to mind for me. I don't necessarily have any like big major challenges, but just minor things that come up that I'm working towards. Over the last few months, I've been in a big restoration phase again, tying into reducing stress and just finding more of that balance. But I've also really been focused on balancing out my hormones. And so with that, I had to pull back a little bit from training, which in itself was a challenge just mentally because I'm always so consistent and love going to the gym and everything. And so just finding a better balance to help reduce stress physically and mentally. So it's kind of been focusing on that, like stress reduction, really trying to prioritize sleep and then overall recovery to help with my hormones and just overall help my body recover, especially after adding in a lot of volleyball combined with my normal training. So I'm just trying to find the right balance there to where mentally I feel good and feel satisfied with what I'm doing, but also making sure that my body's getting adequate recovery and that I'm not overdoing it. So it's kind of been that. And then another one is like I have quite a few injuries. I think it's due to my years of absurd overtraining. I mean, we can't be surprised about that. And a lot of it just stems from my hips being out of line, which is a very common thing that a lot of people deal with. So I've just been working on just like some correctional stuff and working with a massage therapist and chiropractor and stuff to try to like realign that and kind of help with everything else in the chain that's out of line from there. So those are kind of the main challenges that I'm navigating. And then as far as how I'm working to overcome them, a lot of the hormone and stuff, I'm kind of through the other end of that, and I feel like I'm in a good place and balance with that. But it's more of just trial and error and really being in tune and listening to my body on how I'm feeling and kind of forcing myself to take days off or pull back on training. Sometimes when my body isn't feeling it, especially after volleyball, I'll be like, okay, hey, I'm not going to do my normal 4 workouts a week. I'm just going to do 3, and I'm going to combine 2 of my other ones into just a full body session. Or I'm not even going to train to 1 hour like I'm supposed to. I'm just going to train to maybe like 5 and just kind of go treat it like a deload day. And so it's just been forcing myself to one, like letting myself have grace, and then forcing myself to pull back a little bit because I know it's what I need to do. And then listening to my body and just adjusting the plan as needed. So nothing too crazy there for me, but those are kind of the main things that I've been working on and trying to fix. How about you?
Yeah, so I guess within the past year, I guess I've really been focusing on more mobility work, and part of that is one because I was kind of like the guy that's like warm ups, like who needs to warm up, like you get in there like I feel great, why do I need to warm up, and being younger, when you're in your 20s, probably that doesn't really matter so much, like short term, and so I never had any issues with that. But as I got older, I ended up hurting my back a few times for no good reason. And this past year, I was actually doing something like, it was just crazy. I was like leaning over. Of course, I was like in a horrible position, kind of looking, slumped over like on my phone type of thing. And I had this really like powerful sneeze. Like completely, yeah, it's super embarrassing, right? So, yeah, and my back just completely seized up, and it was like the most pain I've ever had. And I've hurt my back before, and I still go to the gym. I still just, I'm just smart. But I tried to climb in my car that morning to go to the gym. I was like, I can't even get into the car. This is that bad. So it was kind of like, okay, obviously I really need to spend a lot more time on mobility work and just be way more intentional with that. And I think it's helped a lot. I was able to obviously recover, and my back feels great. But the plan hopefully is that I don't, as I get older, that I don't have that happen again or anything similar to that. And so just be more intentional in mobility work. And then now, like obviously it's a very busy part of the year for a lot of people. But especially for me, just outside of the normal holiday events, my girls have a lot of dance things going on, and meetings and things like that. Younger me would get really upset, really frustrated if my routine got thrown off. So like if I was, got called in a meeting later on in the afternoon or evening, and I was supposed to be going to work out, I was infuriated. I was like so upset that it was going to ruin my workout, or I was going to miss my workout and just put me in a bad mood. And so slowly I've tried to overcome that. Be like, okay, look, we can rearrange things, whatever. And so like even like this week, Monday I had a lot of meetings, and then my youngest daughter is in choir, and so she had her winter concert. And I didn't get home till late, and I didn't get my workout in. And so I was, of course I have to kind of talk myself into this, it's like, okay, it's okay. One day, it's not going to be the end of the world. It's not going to mess up your routine. Appreciate, getting to watch your youngest daughter and being able to do all that. And so really it's just kind of giving myself some grace with missing some workouts and not letting that stress myself out, and being okay with the routine being, interrupted just a little bit, knowing that typically I am very consistent. And because I've been so consistent over the years, like it's okay if I miss a workout here or there, and so I think that's the biggest thing is just trying to be consistent, getting in the gym and doing everything I want to do, and then not stressing out if things are not exactly the way I had planned, especially if I have to miss a workout. And then also biggest challenge, it's crazy because I'm such an active guy, and I rarely ever sit, but getting my steps in, it's such a challenge, like to get above and beyond 7,000 or 8,000 steps. And so that's been something I've been trying to think about. How can I just get in a little more steps here or there and let it add up, as opposed to going out for a long period of time. And it's getting colder now, so like late at night, like it's kind of lazy, but also, it's a challenge. It's really cold. I don't really want to go for a walk and it's freezing cold out and anything like that. So it's trying to figure that stuff out and to work within my lifestyle as well.
Yeah, what are you doing as far as the steps? What have you implemented so far? What's your plan for that?
Good question. So I do little things, of course, like I'll park at the end of a parking lot, or I'll take all the stairs, or sometimes I'll just walk a long way out of the way. I'll tell you something that's really kind of funny. One place that I go that I get a lot of steps in the grocery store.
Yeah.
So I'm not worried if I don't get an order. I usually have kind of like a routine of where I go in the grocery store and everything. Sometimes like, all right, maybe I should walk over a couple aisles, and then I come back and it's like 2,000, 3,000 steps. I do have like one of those little walking pad, I guess, treadmills they call it, that I'm trying to use that like when I'm watching a football game or something that I'm just not doing anything. And so I can do that. The other day I was way behind on steps. And so I just like went in the garage and just kind of ran in place and kind of back and forth. And I was singing and just having fun with it. I don't know if there's just something I can do every day, but I'm trying to just add in little things each day.
Yeah, definitely. And even what you said too about kind of giving yourself grace and that mentality. I feel like I'm very aligned with that too. I think both of our goals and challenges were kind of similar in that, like a little, like same but different,
Yeah.
because it's so easy to get caught up in wanting everything to be perfect all the time and then kind of beating yourself up when it isn't. But also that's just a part of life. Things always get in the way. And that's also always what we train clients on too, is learning to adapt and go with the flow, especially like you are someone who's super consistent all the time. So it's more of training ourselves to be okay with it not being perfect and being okay with taking another day off or something like that.
Right. Yeah, and looking at it this isn't a short-term thing. Everything we do is built on, yeah, sure, we want to see short-term stuff as well, but built on sustainability, long-term results. And so you miss one workout, it's not going to affect the ultimate grand scheme of things.
Oh yeah, not at all. And I think we always get in our head that this is the end of the world. I'm gonna lose all my progress, or I ate one bad meal, it's all over. I'm gonna gain the weight. But like, no, it
Yeah.
literally doesn't impact it at all. And even with the mobility too, I think it's funny. That's one of the things that most people always see as boring, or oh, like it's not as important. And then it's also kind of where you said like you sneezed and like to your back. I think those types of things are where people get injured the most. It's just like the super random, like going to pick something up off the ground or like playing with your kids, like something just super random will throw it out. And it's just because you aren't used to training in those full ranges of motion or in those different planes. And so that's also why mobility is so important, to setting the stage for that and just making sure that you're fully bulletproofed. And I always say it's just as important as any other workout. And it's something that needs to be prioritized just as much as any other workout too.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because I think, and that was me. You look at it and go, that's not going to do anything for me. I'd rather have a real workout. I'm lifting some actual weight, but you do that mobility work and it improves your ankle mobility and your hip mobility and improves your core strength and all of that, and it improves your range of motion, right? And all of that is going to help you to be stronger and help you to improve on those lifts. And so it will help you to improve your in the gym with the weights and help you get stronger. So it's definitely worth it for sure.
Yeah, I went through that phase too when I'm like, mobility is stupid. And then obviously I got a bunch of injuries. So I'm like, okay, mobility is important. And like you said,
that's actually really good for you.
It's not just for the functionality. That's a huge part of it. But like you said, you will build more muscle if you can train through fuller ranges of motion. And that comes from mobility. So there's that added bonus too.
Right.
All right, next one is from Jordan on our school group as well. In regards to diet, I'm trying to focus on whole, fresh foods. Tried keto and liked it, but it was unsustainable. Is adding protein and fiber supplements a bad idea?
Yeah, so I think it's an awesome approach to focus on whole foods. I mean, we always recommend that. I'll say, as much as I'd love to say that that's all I do, it is very difficult to have every single meal be nothing but whole foods, or whole fresh foods especially. So I do think adding a protein supplement is fantastic. There's a couple ways I like to look at it. Either one, and this is kind of something I've done for forever, is have like a shake in the morning. And that way I have plenty of protein. I start out with at least 50, 60 grams of protein every morning, and it's just such a great start. Establishes for the rest of the day. Lately, I've been trying to, on days that I have a little more time in the morning, I've been trying to go away from the shakes and add whole foods, just to get a little more of that in there. And then the other thing I look at is if at the end of the day I haven't had a very good protein day, then I might add a shake at the end to make sure that I do get enough protein in. And so either way you look at it, that way it gives me just make sure I get enough in. And because protein, you've got to get your protein in to reach your goals for sure.
Yeah, I agree. Generally, you want to be getting probably like 80% of your diet from whole foods. But then there's definitely value when if you're in a pinch or in a go, or like you said, at the end of the day, you're a little bit short, just having a protein shake or whatnot. So yeah, I think there's value in adding that, but we want to try to prioritize getting as much whole foods as we can, but no one's going to be perfect, especially when you have a lot going on. And kind of same with the fiber. I think for that, we want to be getting it a lot from real whole foods as well, and then supplementing as needed. But it's definitely not a bad idea. It's all about like each particular situation and also making sure that you're getting enough quality of real food and then having the right balance of adding in those supplements.
Yeah, and I think it's easy. And a lot of it's the marketing in this world, right? A lot of times people will start to say, okay, the day one, what supplements should I take? And I love that enthusiasm. But I think, there's a lot of things you need to establish and watch and get a baseline for and figure out, do I need these supplements? Because they're expensive. And there's a lot of stuff you really don't need. And everyone's different. So you have to figure out, okay, what do I need? If you're getting in plenty of protein every day, you may not need that, But yeah, so I would kind of look at what am I eating every day and what am I lacking, and before I start looking at what kind of supplements, and then kind of fill those gaps in with the supplements.
Yeah, I agree. I always say focus on all the fundamentals first before you even remotely consider trying to take a bunch of supplements. So just like training, food, hydration, all of like sleep, stress, all of the main basics. And once those are covered, then we can look, okay, what else can we add and what can I supplement to help take me to that next level?
Right, right.
All right, next one is from Matt on school as well. On the road for work this week in Houston/San Antonio. Live in Utah. When you travel, how do you alter your workouts for hotel fitness centers? Also, any tips on how you travel with your supplements?
Yeah. So first of all, I'm jealous. He's going to Houston. Yeah.
Right.
That's right. I think there's a couple ways you can look at this, and again, it depends on the individual. There are times where if I'm just like locked in, dialed in, I have been working out super consistently, and I feel great. And sometimes I might take that week to like a deload and not do anything. Just use that to get steps in or be active, but just kind of enjoy it. But most of the time, I do try to find a hotel room or a hotel that has a nice workout center. And it really depends on what equipment they have. Sometimes if they have a lot of equipment, I may just pick up where I was in my program. If they don't, then I'll just use what they have. I might go to lightweight. Sometimes I'll focus on like just one exercise. I might say, okay, I'm gonna do some squats and do 10 reps of squat or 10 sets of squats. Or there's a lot of different ways you can do it. I think the biggest thing is not just stress out about it. Kind of think about kind of your plan going into it. No matter what you decide to do, have your plan. You can even look up ahead of time to find out what kind of gym or that your resort has, or that there's a gym close by. And then just basically you're getting in there and have fun with it and do the best you can with what they have.
Yeah, I feel like most hotel gyms at the very least have dumbbells. I think that's like the basic equipment. Sometimes they'll have more like cables or a Smith machine or something, but generally they all have dumbbells. And so typically it's just adjusting the workout. If you have barbell squats, do a dumbbell squat or whatever it is, just swapping them for dumbbells and just making those simple swaps there. And just, it's not going to be perfect and that's fine. The goal isn't necessarily going in and trying to hit any crazy PRs or anything. You're just staying active, maintaining the routine, doing the best you can. And that's typically what I do too. I'll usually try to find a local gym, like an actual full gym, and do it. And even then, like my workout still isn't perfect because it's new equipment, new environment, and kind of throws me off a little bit. But again, it's just going in, putting the reps, showing up, and doing something as opposed to trying to be perfect or hitting crazy PRs.
Yeah, and lately I feel like the hotel gyms have upped up their game. I feel like it used to be I would go into and you'd see some cardio equipment, maybe some dumbbells, and if it had a rack of dumbbells, it was like up to 50. But I feel like the last few resorts that I've been to, they're up to like 70, 75. And there's usually some kind of cable system, which is great. And they usually have up-to-date cable systems too. They're really nice. And so if you're like, okay, great, but I really do want to get a workout, what should I do? Focus on those big lifts. You definitely can do squats, right? You could do that with dumbbells, no problem. Now, there's usually a pull-up bar, so you could do pull-ups, or you could do some kind of modified pull-down. If you want, you could do a bench press. Most of them have a bench that you can adjust to be incline. So do the incline bench. You could do shoulder press, the dumbbells, and just that would be a fantastic workout on its own.
Yeah. Seriously, any movement that you have in your regular programming can be adjusted to dumbbells, cable, whatever your gym has. You're just finding those similar movement patterns, whether it's a squat, press, pull, whatever it is. There's always an alternative. And sometimes you got to get a little more creative with it, but there's always an alternative. So it's just making those simple swaps, focusing on whatever muscle group you're targeting, what type of movement it is, and just making those swaps and doing the best you can.
I was going to say, and if you don't have access to a weight room, whether they don't have one at the resort, or you're not going to travel to one, then bands are such a useful tool to carry. They don't take up much space. Nowadays, you can buy these little things that can hook almost anywhere, and you can do it on like the railing outside the hotel room. You can put it in between the door jamb, whatever. So there's a lot of ways, and you can do some really good workouts with those. And then at the very least, you could also do some mobility work.
Hey, speaking of mobility, yeah, perfect time for that. Don't need any equipment.
Yeah.
And then as far as his question on tips on how you travel with supplements, for me, I feel like that's pretty easy. I actually have mine packed up now. I have my creatine gummies. I have all my supplements like put out in their little like daily jar. So I literally just take that little, what is it called? Like a supplement organizer. I just have them all like for each day of the week. And I pack that. I put my creatine gummies in a bag and we're good to go. And that's all I do for that.
Yeah, I'll do. So usually what I'll take is I'll definitely always take my creatine. And a lot of times it depends on how long the trip is. If it's a shorter trip, I'll take protein powder with me. Or sometimes I'll even like go to a store if I'm down, if it's going to be a long time, and buy some protein powder. Or if I'm driving, obviously I can just pack all that stuff up. But if I'm flying, I'll just get a couple shakers and I'll put the powders in there. I will tell you, I've got stopped quite often.
Especially with the creatine.
I get this like, so I use the powder. So I get this white powder, and so they're always pulling over the kind of, all right, I got to check this out. And I'm like, it's just creatine, but go ahead. So I always thought that was kind of funny, but yeah. And I don't really stress out about if like, there's a couple other things I might take like magnesium or vitamin D or something like that. If I don't have it that trip, or I mean, to be honest with you, a lot of times I get out of my routine and I'll take things like magnesium with me and I'll forget.
Yeah.
Because it's just not part of my routine. But I definitely always take protein powder with me and creatine.
Yeah, for sure. I don't typically take protein powder, but that's a good idea too. I usually just have a shit ton of protein bars and just like protein snacks, and I just load up my bag with that too.
Yeah.
All right, next one is from Jordy on school. What are some of the biggest differences between the lifestyle of someone who wants to be an elite athlete and someone who just wants to stay healthy? I think this is interesting because I think majority of people are in the second group who just want to be healthy. And I think the difference between those two is being an elite athlete is kind of your full-time job. Like it becomes like you need to kind of be obsessed to a certain level, and you need to be pretty on point and hitting everything to a T for the most part. Whereas for the average person who's just looking to get healthy, that's where kind of more our approaches come into play, where we're talking more about that balance and sustainability and giving yourself grace. Not to say that you shouldn't give yourself grace if you're an elite athlete, but it's just a much higher standard and you have to push yourself a lot harder, and you have to be obsessed to a pretty decent degree.
Yeah, and if you're an elite athlete, you're in like a top percentage of the world, right? So it is something that, like you said, I think obsessed is probably a good word. Whether you're talking about like an elite athlete, like in the bodybuilding world, it is extremely difficult to get a real nice six pack and almost impossible to sustain that. I think I saw something somewhere. It was like there are more millionaires in the world than people with six packs. And which is crazy. Yeah. And of course you look at social media, you're like, whatever. I get on there and like every, guy or girl that I follow has a six pack, and you're like, well, yeah, those are the only people you're following. That's still like 1% of the world. And when it comes to, any other sport, they are dialed in season to their sport, and then off season, they're dialed into their workout program. So you really do have to be kind of obsessed with what you're doing. When you're looking at things like, I want a six pack and I want to be ripped up, and I want to be like, super low body fat percentage. That's really a good thing for just a short time period anyway. If you're in that state too long, you really start messing up your hormones, and there's just a lot of things that you have to sacrifice, in the real world to have that. And for most people, it ends up being the opposite, of unhealthiness.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Being an elite athlete, typically you aren't necessarily healthy. Like there, I think to some extent you can be, but that mentality, the approach with the training, how they have to eat, like it's not necessarily healthy, especially bodybuilders. Like it's not healthy at all. But again, that's their job, it's their sport, and they're obsessed with that, and that's what they're training to do. And so it's just a completely different mentality and a completely different approach to just someone who's looking to get healthy and stay in shape. And kind of same goes in with the training. Obviously, the training is going to be completely different depending on what kind of athlete you are, but it's going to be a lot more intense and not something that's sustainable or manageable for the average person.
Right.
All right. Next up is from Walter from school as well. How do I get back in the gym after coming off an injury and to get back to the level that you were when you left?
Yeah, patience, right?
Pretty much. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, we both kind of mentioned that about injuries that we've had and getting back to the gym. I mean, so for me, like I don't really take any time off of the gym if I have an injury, but I'm very careful, try to be very patient, and really try to listen to my body for that area. So, for example, when I hurt my back, I couldn't jump in there and start doing deadlifts and squats right away. I had to take some time off of that area. And I would just do things that felt good from my upper body, but didn't really bother my back. And there were even some upper body positions that, really bothered my back. And so I'd have to modify it. Mm-hmm. You just slowly take your time, get back in there, recover, and be patient. And eventually that injury will heal itself. But it does take time. And so I think you either go, some people make the mistake of going back in there as fast as possible and then end up hurting themselves again. Or they have the opposite mindset. Well, I just won't go into the gym for a few months until it feels better. And I think neither of them are really good. I think your body needs to be active. Even if you have an injury, I think it wants to move. You just have to be very, very smart and just be patient and listen to your body.
I agree 100%. And now, granted, we are not medical professionals. Consult your doctor, disclaimer, whatever.
Yeah, speak to your doctor first.
But yeah, in general, obviously it depends on what situation you're dealing with. But in general, most injuries, or at least the ones that we've encountered with clients too, there's always something that you can do and you can still make significant progress. I've had a few clients who had like past injuries from before they started working with me and they had to get surgery. And so obviously there's a big recovery period from that. And we still made just as good as progress as if they were like 100% like fully healed. And so a lot of that comes down to diet, and a lot of that comes down to just adjusting the programming as needed to focus on what we can. Like if your upper body is injured, just do some lower body machines and vice versa. So there's always stuff that you can do, but it is like you got to be super careful and always err on the side of being more cautious and giving yourself more time and not trying to push the problem area, not trying to push through any pain or discomfort. You need to let that heal. You also need to do the proper recovery tools, whether that's physical therapy or whatever correctional exercises you're doing to make sure that you're rehabbing that. And so it's getting back to 100%.
Yeah, and like you said, that the working out is extremely important, but it's just one piece of the puzzle. And so you can improve your sleep, you can improve your nutrition, you can improve how you're handling stress, and so sometimes you get hurt. You're like, okay, well maybe I'll just put my focus on those things, while I'm recovering on that as well.
Yeah, that's what I always have people do, because it is tough though. Like you get in your head, especially when you're getting that momentum and you're feeling good, and then you have some sort of setback or injury or surgery, whatever it is. It can be very tough mentally to navigate that. But that's why I'm always like, hey, we can't train upper body, we can't train lower body, but look at the long ass list of things that we can focus on and that can move the needle a ton for you. So it's just shifting your focus to the things you can control, and then again, just making sure you're really approaching the rehab process properly and listening to your body as you recover.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I was angry, but yeah, you're right. I mean, get over the initial response of getting mad about it or frustrated or upset about it. And then you're like, okay, so what's my plan going forward?
Yeah. And I mean, that reminds me too, back 10 years ago when I first got started in the gym, that's where, I went through my super obsessive, like overtraining phase and just killing myself. And I got a lot of injuries from that. And My dumbass used to just continue to push through it. I literally, at one point, I sprained both of my wrists. I don't know how, but I literally kept training. I wrapped them. I had like some boxing dude at the gym wrap them for me, and I would literally just go and still was doing like bicep curls and shit. And like, that is dumb. Do not do that. If you have an injury, you need to rest whatever area. You need to rehab that area. But again, it's easy to get into that all or nothing mentality where like, oh, I'm just going to push through it, or I'm just not going to do anything altogether. And like you said, we want to avoid that. We want to find that happy medium and focus on the things that we can control.
Right. And again, we're looking at this long term. We want somebody to sustain. So you don't want to hurt yourself further, or have to spend more time recovering and taking care of this injury,
Yeah,
or
nothing
causing
more
other
than that.
injuries.
Yeah. All right, next up is from Chris from Twitter. Creatine before or after a workout, and how do you determine the precise amount of creatine consumption that you recommend?
Yeah. So I remember. So I was one of the, I think, first original people that took creatine. No, seriously. So that you tell my age a little bit, but so when I first started taking creatine, it was like brand new to the market. There was very little research, and of course, all the research was super short term. And I don't know if I honestly I don't remember why I started taking it. I don't know if I saw like an ad in a magazine or it's probably what I saw. Probably saw some article on it, and so I started taking it. And I remember my mom was very worried. She was like, "What is this stuff? Like, you don't know anything about it." And I was like, "Mom, trust me, it's good. It'll be good. No worries." And I get her concern with it, but luckily it turned out to be one of the primo supplements that you could take. There's so much great research beyond, above and beyond of what they originally recommended it for. But I remember going throughout the years, they would, there was a lot of conversations about you have to take a lot of carbs with it, and they would sell these drinks, and they tasted great because they had extra sugar in it. But it was like creatine with like sugar, and then it's like, oh, you need to load up before you load up your body before, then you go on a maintenance thing. And now, after all this research, we looked at it and said, look, you don't need any kind of loading phase. You don't need to add anything to it. Basically what you need is 5 grams of creatine. And it doesn't, you're kind of splitting hairs, right? It doesn't really matter before, after. If you're like, it doesn't matter to me, it's probably a little bit better to take it after. But really, I think the biggest thing is, when are you going to be able to take it consistently?
Yeah, creatine is one of the best supplements out there, and it's one of the ones that I recommend to basically everyone, just for the recovery benefits, the muscle building benefits, just overall health, cognitive benefits. Like, there's so many great things that come from creatine. And it's weird that so many people still are almost kind of like your mom was. Like, they treat it as almost as like some steroid or something. I don't know why people view it that way, maybe just from the marketing and stuff in the past, but it's one of the best ones out there. And like you said, yeah, no need to do a loading phase or anything like that. Just 5 grams a day, every day. Anytime around your workout is ideal, but like, it's, again, like you said, it's splitting hairs. As long as you're getting it in consistently, that's all that really matters. So don't worry about the timing or any of those details as much as getting your 5 grams and you'll be good to go.
Yeah, and honestly, I usually take it in the morning with my shake because I take the powder, so I just dump it in there. You don't taste it. When I have it by itself, water, you swirl it up. It kind of tastes a little bit, chalky, grainy type of thing, and I feel like I don't get it all in there. So, but that's when I know for sure that I'm gonna be able to take it consistently. So that's when I take it.
Creatine gummies, though, that's the move. Because I've always struggled with taking supplements, especially creatine, just the powder. I don't know why. I'm just one of those people that I'm super consistent with everything. It just supplements. I don't know why I hate it. But since I got the gummies, I have not missed a single day. I have been on point taking my creatine for months now.
There you
So
go.
that's my favorite. I wish all supplements came in gummy form.
It's funny you said that because I really feel like I think that's going to be the trend. Like I think almost anything's going to be in gummy form. Just add what, like a gram or two of sugar. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, very
And for
minimal.
most people, that's what it is. It's like they can either look forward to eating because they're, oh, this tastes good. I guess it just removes one more barrier for not taking something.
Yeah, it helps with the consistency so much because I know if I'm this disciplined and consistent in general and struggle taking it, like I can't imagine everyone else too. And so, yeah, it's just been a game changer and it's something that I actually enjoy taking. So, highly recommend the creatine gummies.
Yeah, I think I saw something too. Is like people are more consistent with giving their dogs their monthly medicine than they are like taking their own medicine type of thing.
Sounds about right.
So,
Next one is also from Chris. How many calories should you be looking to burn in a workout? 100, 200, 300, 500?
keep going now.
I
So should you
think
be looking to burn any calories during a workout? Should that be the focus?
I was gonna say no. Like this is just the wrong question altogether. the goal is not going in trying to burn calories. Period. If you're, especially when it comes to weight training, your goal is to train properly, is to build muscle, to send that muscle building signal to your body and get all the benefits from weight training. And calories are irrelevant because when you build muscle, you're automatically going to burn more calories naturally throughout the day. And not to mention, however you're tracking that, I guarantee you it's not accurate. Whatever your Apple Watch is telling you is not accurate. So in general, if you're looking at the stats and like trying to burn a certain amount and trying to hit the move goal, like disregard that and just focus on the actual intent behind your workout. And are you progressing properly? Are you training with the proper form, control, intent? Those are things that matter most. Burning calories is irrelevant.
Yeah. When you're weightlifting, you're lifting weights, am I getting stronger? Don't worry about the calorie burn right now.
Yeah, it just gets you into that bad mindset of like almost like beating yourself into the ground, trying to like burn, trying to punish yourself. And it's just an unhealthy mentality. And again, we're going for that sustainability, longevity, and setting yourself up for success. And it's just the wrong approach overall. Not something that I necessarily agree with.
Yeah, we discussed that in our episode with cardio and
Hmm.
resistance training. And that ideally, that's what we want to do is we want to build more muscle and rev up our metabolism so that we are burning calories throughout the day, as opposed to just one short period of trying to burn as many as we can.
Yeah. And speaking of cardio and strength training, Chris also asked, can you get cardio in by strength training? Example, hit with weights. And vice versa, strength in by cardio, running with a weight vest or biking hills with high resistance.
Yeah, those are actually great forms of cardio. Yeah.
Yeah.
The question was interesting because a lot of times people say, "Can I, get stronger by doing the hit workouts or taking these classes and everything like that?" And there's a lot of different things you can do with weights that are still considered cardio exercise. You know, for it to be strictly, I'm getting stronger, I'm lifting weights, I'm getting stronger, you really need to have those rest periods built in. Not doing anything between like an actual rest period where you're just kind of relaxing, letting your body recover, building up strength for that next set that you do. So anything that is just a constant, you're moving, very little rest in between. It doesn't matter whether you're lifting weights or not. It's a form of cardio. So if that's your goal to get more cardio in to build up endurance, and those are great options.
Yeah, I think that's where a lot of people get mixed up. They're like, yeah, I lift weights and it's just a HIIT class or a group fitness class. I'm like, no, that's cardio, which is fine if that's what you're going for. But to get the strength training benefits, then we need to actually have a structured strength training program and routine and approaching it properly in that sense with the proper progressive overload, again, the control, and like you said, the rest periods and all that. So there's a very distinct difference between that sort of cardio and weight training. That's not to say that, like, I'm sure you can get a little bit of strength if you're doing HIIT stuff, and I'm sure you can get a little bit of strength by like running with a weight vest and stuff, but very, very minimal. Like that kind of stuff is still cardio, and regular strength training equals strength training.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's a time and place for all that, in your program. And if you are brand new to working out, you probably will build a little bit of muscle doing any kind of workout, with
Mhm.
weights. But for the most part, you're just not going to build that muscle. And, there are benefits to classes. A lot of it is that social interaction, that group mindset type of thing. And of course, if you're trying to build endurance, then those cardio classes are great. And so whenever someone's ask us about cardio, walking is the recommended most amazing thing to do. But if someone's like, okay, I like other things, then usually I tell them, well, what do you like to do? Do that. If someone's like, I love to do my class every Saturday morning at the gym, then do it. But consider that a cardio exercise and not your weight training exercise.
Yeah, exactly. There's not like one is like bad or the other is good. It's just strength training, strength training. HIIT cardio is cardio. They're kind of different. You're going to get a little bit of benefits from both, but overall, they're in two separate pools.
Right. Right.
Next one is from Alex on Twitter. Are you better off going lighter weight to ensure you can get all of your planned reps, or should you push yourself weight wise, even if it means you might not be able to complete all of your planned reps?
Yeah, so for me, like I am a big form guy. So whether I am lifting lighter weights or heavier weights, I want to make sure that my form isn't sacrificed through the entire thing. And so usually I will have a plan in mind of what I'm doing, whether I'm doing, 8 to 10 reps or 12 to 15 or 3 to 5, whatever it may be. And you can build muscle in any of those rep ranges. So depending on your program and depending on what your goal is and what you're doing right there, any of that can build muscle. The question is, do I need to make sure that they're lighter to get all my planned reps in? So that kind of gives you an idea of whether you need to be increasing or decreasing your weight also. If my plan is to get 8 to 10 and I can only get 6, then I'm probably need to decrease that weight for the next set. I'll do as many as I can. I'll stop, make sure I have good form, and then I'll lighten the load. If I'm trying to get, my goal is like 3 to 5 and I'm getting 8, 10, I could probably keep going. Then I can definitely increase that weight on the next set. So that's one way to gauge whether you should, increase or decrease your weight as well.
Yeah, I think that covers it pretty well because even the way this question is framed kind of throws me off because it almost sounds like they're just kind of looking at it from the wrong mentality. Because, yeah, you should have a rep target or ideally a rep range. I'm a big fan of rep ranges, like 8 to 10, for example, as opposed to just trying to hit 8 because a lot of people will cut themselves short just to try to hit that number. But you're going to have that range, assuming that your programming is done properly. If you've been doing it, you'll know where you need to be at weight wise to kind of get within that range. And like you said, if you're above within like 1 or 2, you're probably good. But if you're well above, then yeah, lower it a little bit to get closer to the rep range and then just find that sweet spot. And that's what you're going to be able to build on each week. Because each week, then from there, you should be doing very similar movements and you shouldn't have to adjust the weight too much. Like once you get to the top of rep range, then you'll be able to up the weight and you'll just kind of repeat that process over and over. It makes it very easy and simple to know how to progress and what weight to use.
Yeah, and there's no like magic rep range. So like you go over by 1 or under by 1 or something like
Yeah.
that. It's not the end of the world. It was still an effective set.
Yeah, for sure. And like if you're, let's say again, your target is 8 to 10 and you eventually get to 10 reps at a certain weight and then you up the weight, like at that new weight, you may only be able to get 6 or 7, which is totally fine. You're just going to have to build up until you get to the 8 to 10. Then once you get to 10 again, then you'll kind of repeat that process over and over.
Right. And I think one thing I want to add to that too, just kind of popped in my mind. One thing you want to be careful is not, you don't want to be like stuck in the same rep range with the same rep or the same weight your entire like year.
Mm-hmm.
You have some people like, oh, this is my weight. I lift my 10-pound dumbbells and I do it 8 times. Oh, really? How long have you been doing that? Well, I've been doing that for 2 years. It's like, well, yeah, that's why we have seen no changes. We have to, there's a lot of variables that go into it, not just the reps or the weight. But you shouldn't be doing the exact same thing all the time.
Yeah, we should always be applying that progressive overload. I'm sure that's a topic that we'll be able to break down in a lot more depth. But again, once you get to the top of the rep range, you are upping the weight and you're repeating that process. And it's just endless. Like you're going to be able to continuously grow and build strength from there. So yeah, make sure that you're always trying to push and grow, not just staying comfortable at the weight that you feel good at. It should always be a challenge and you should always be pushing yourself to get to that next level.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it. Comfort wise, you want to be comfortable with the form and how you're performing the exercise. I always like to treat every exercise like a skill. So you want to make sure you've mastered that. But in terms of the weight, yeah, it's not going to be comfortable every time you lift a weight. If it is, and you probably do need to progressive somewhere.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Next one is from Ariel on Twitter. Do you limit carbs? And is it possible to go completely without carbs? Can you get enough protein from non-meat sources if you want to build muscle? Do I limit carbs? Absolutely not. Is it possible to go completely without carbs? Technically, yes. Carbs are a non-essential macronutrient. Again, protein and fat are essential. Carbs is non-essential. But does that mean it's optimal? No. I think for majority of people, carbs are very beneficial, especially just to help with energy training. It's our body's main energy source. And so carbs are amazing. It's not something that we should be afraid of or shy away from, especially if we're active and if we're training.
Yeah, and so I mean, I personally don't limit carbs. I tend to have a lower carb diet in general. That's just the way, I don't know, I enjoy eating but I do love, good non-bread or something like that. I love my fruit. So usually the majority of my carbs are actually from fruit. I get a lot of carbs from fruit. So like you said, it is possible to go without it. It's the only macro that's not essential. But yeah, I think you would have some issues, like you said, energy wise, and you're probably going to miss out on some, micronutrients somewhere possibly, especially if you're not taking in like any kind of fruit or vegetables. And then to answer the other question, can you get enough protein from non-meat sources? You can, but it's extremely difficult. It's extremely difficult. So, I mean, there's, meat sources are so valuable for a lot of different reasons, but it's so much easier to be able to get your protein if you have a very a large variety to your diet. And even if you're like, well, I don't want to eat meat or chicken, you have things like, Greek yogurt and cottage cheese. And so, if you can eat some kind of dairy or have some kind of, compromise there, sometimes we can talk clients into eating some eggs or things like that. That really helps. But the more you limit your diet, the harder it is to get all your macros the way you really, to have an optimal nutrition plan.
And not to mention, it's not particularly enjoyable for like everyone who says they go keto, they say it's or not everyone, but a lot of people who come to us, they say, "Oh, I did keto and I was miserable. I hate it. Like, didn't enjoy it." Cutting out carbs or cutting out any major food group like that usually makes it very unsustainable and unenjoyable. And even if you go out to events, you can't enjoy the foods you want, and so lifestyle wise, it doesn't usually make sense either. And then, yeah, like you said, with the protein, meat sources are going to be by far the best as far as just the quality of protein that you're getting, and then also just the ability to get in that much protein. It's possible, again, to go without carbs. It's possible to go without non-meat sources, but definitely, I would say, not optimal. It's going to make your journey a hell of a lot more challenging.
Yeah, and sometimes too, if you're not taking in any meat sources, because of the type of amino acids that you're getting, they're incomplete. So you
Mm-hmm.
have a lot of times you have to eat even more. 'Cause sometimes you can get away if you're having a lot of variety in the protein sources that you're taking in. You can get away with a little bit less protein. But when you're limiting yourself and you're only getting it from plant sources, then a lot of times you really have to make sure you're getting that number to get those amino acids and enough of the variety of the amino acids.
Such a good point. Next one is name one thing that motivates you when you hit rock bottom, but just one.
Just one. That's why I was about to list like 10, but
Yeah, for me, I guess I'm thinking back to 10-ish years ago when I did hit rock bottom because that was the only point like where I was at that point and where I guess I needed like I'm not even a fan of the word motivation in general, but for me what drove me when I hit that rock bottom was just I was fucking tired of feeling like shit every day. I was tired of just going through the motions, being numb and just living such an unfulfilled life and just surviving each day. I was just barely making it through. And I was so tired of feeling like shit and hating myself, how I looked physically, mentally, just who I was. And so that was enough for me to be like, okay, something needs to change. And so for me in that moment, there was just one day like where I hit that wall and I was like, I'm done. I'm tired of feeling like this. I have no other option but to make a change and start moving in the right direction or just accept defeat and continue to live like this, which to me wasn't an option at that point. So for me, that pain just got so unbearable that I'm like, all right, we're doing this. The switch flipped and I was all in and just doing what I need to do and focusing on figuring out what I need to do to get out of it. And granted, I didn't know what I was doing to get out of it, but I was just learning as I went, took some information, tried one thing. If it didn't work, I would try the next and just continue to move like that. But for me, it was just, I was tired of feeling that way. I hated myself and I knew I needed to do something about it. So that was enough for me to get the ball rolling.
Yeah, I think for me, the motivation is very fleeting, meaning that sometimes I'm extremely motivated to do something, and then at other times I'm not. It depends on the type of year. Like if we're talking about like New Year's, for example, a lot of people are motivated to get in the gym, but sometimes it could be one thing. May wake up and it's cold outside, they're tired, or it's snowing, or it's raining, and they're like, I'm just going to go back to bed. All of a sudden that motivation starts to fade. And so it's really, for me, it's really setting up my habits and routine. So it's not, I don't have to rely on that motivation, so that I've already established, hey, I'm doing this. I'm going to the gym, every single day this week, or Monday through Saturday, or Monday through Friday, whatever my schedule is. And that's what I'm doing. And, it is what it is. I'm definitely doing that. That's just part of my routine, no matter what it's like outside, what my mood is, how motivated I am, I'm going there. And then it's once I'm there, then I can, maybe I'm not motivated to do a great workout, so I'll do something that's just easier, or I'll do something that's more laid back, or maybe I'm super motivated and that's where I just really push myself. And but I think really just establishing those habits and those routines, so it's just like that is part of me. That's what I do all the time, and so I'm just doing that regardless of what's going on outside of that gym.
Yeah, that's why I said I'm not a big fan of the term motivation. Motivation is a temporary feeling. It comes and goes. Like you said, it's fleeting. We cannot rely on it. It's great when it's there, cool, ride the wave, but
Mhm.
it's not something that is always going to be there. No one ever feels motivated 100% of the time, especially you, me. Like, no one feels motivated 100% of the time. So we got to learn to shift away from motivation. Again, ride it when it's there, but it's all about, like you said, building the habits, building the discipline. So that way it becomes automatic and you do what you need to do. And I think a lot of that too comes down to having a really strong driving force and a why. So going back to what I said about when I was at rock bottom, my why was I'm tired of feeling like shit. I don't want to keep living this life. Like it's either this or like I just end it. And so that was my why, is just to get to a better place and feel more fulfilled and feel confident in myself. And so you need that solid why, you need that solid driving force to get you going, and then you need to start building the right habits and the routines by starting super manageable. Like you said, it doesn't need to be perfect. Start with something that you can be consistent with, that you can stick to, and keep building that, reinforce that every single day when you get it done, and then build on it over time. And that is what is going to create like the true sustainable change and help you keep going even when times get tough, and even when you kind of hit that wall. It's still automatic because we aren't relying on the motivation and the temporary feeling, because no one always feels like it.
Right. Yeah.
All right, last one. How much attention do you pay to your breathing when exercising?
All right. I don't pay a whole lot of attention, but what I mean by it is I don't think about it. Like it's not something that just because, I guess when I first started working out, like it was something that was part of my routine, or a part of my learning experience. And that was part of the exercise. Like I said, I want to treat it like a skill. So part of it was learning how to breathe
Mm.
while I was exercising. And now it just gets to a point where I don't think about it much because I naturally do it. You definitely do not want to hold your breath, while you're performing the exercise. And there are correct ways of breathing. So I do think it's important. And again, it's practicing, knowing when to exhale, when to inhale. And that's just, I think it is very important, but you got to practice it and kind of be intentional on how you're breathing.
Yeah, I always say training is arguably more mental than it is physical, but because there are so many different things that you're focusing on, as far as the control, the eccentrics, focusing on all the cues for your form, and then also the breath work. That it really is such an important part of the training, and I think a lot of people overlook that or just aren't even aware of it. And again, like you said, it's a skill. It's something you have to practice and develop. But breathing is super important, especially if you're doing stuff like squats and deadlifts. Like you need to be breathing in and really bracing and tightening your core to make sure you're protecting your low back and everything. So that's an important part of it too. But in general, breathing is important. You want to be, I like saying, like, you breathe in before you start your rep and you're holding your breath, you're bracing and you're focusing on all the cues and everything. You're doing your rep and then you're exhaling as you bring the weight back down. And so you're kind of just repeating like that. Sometimes you'll be able to do a couple reps with one breath, and sometimes you may need to take a breath for each rep. It kind of just depends on where you're at. But generally, that's the structure that you're following: breathing in, doing the rep, and then exhaling as you're lowering it.
Yeah. So like example, like a bench press, right? So you have the bar above you. So when you're coming down, you're inhaling, and then when you're pushing out, you're exhaling, right?
Yeah. Or depending on it, like sometimes if you're like squatting, like you need to take that breath and embrace before you even start the movement. And then
Right.
you're doing your entire rep and exhaling as you're coming up. So yeah, a little variation there, but overall breathing is very important. And it's just one of those things that like you just got to continue to stack and practice those types of skills with your training.
Yeah, it is important, and make sure we're not holding our breath while we're
Yeah. It'll be a little dangerous.
yeah, and I think you made a great point about, especially like when you're bracing your core, and that'll protect your core, protect your lower back, protect yourself from other injuries, and really help you to just perform that exercise to the best of your ability.
Yep. All right, so that's a wrap. I hope this helps. And if you guys like these types of episodes, let us know. If you guys have further questions that you want to be answered, be on the lookout for more of these posts that I'm posting again in our school community and on Twitter. Speaking of the school community, that is going to be the best place to go for this type of access. You get first access to opportunities like this, challenges, scholarship opportunities, as well as hundreds of dollars worth of resources and daily content that we're putting in there. And it's completely free to join. So I will drop that link below, and then you can also connect with us on social media. I'll link those in the notes as well. And we will see you guys next week.